There's something to be said about making your passion your income, and that could be doing deals, that could be doing real estate, that could be Airbnb, that could be creating information and promoting a cause. I mean, whatever that is, once you find that, there's a great marriage there. Welcome, Income Hackers. This is your host, Ryan G. Wright. This podcast is for individuals and families who are interested in fast-tracking their financial success. You'll hear experts discussing topics like generating a residual cash flow, building wealth through real estate, financial literacy, creating a family legacy, and overcoming your fears. If you get value out of this podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It's a big help to me. You paid off $52,000 of debt in 18 months just on a regular income that most people would have. Tell me a little bit about that. Most people would say that couldn't be done.
Yeah. Well, the first catalyst was my wife and I getting married, right? So we decided, hey, let's put our finances together and let's kind of see where we're at, right? Take a snapshot. And we're like, oh my gosh, we have 52 grand in debt. And she's a first year teacher in high school. So she's making the first year teacher salary in a public school. And then I was commission only salesman for wood flooring. And this was back in the recession. So we weren't selling a lot of high end wood floors back then. So it was kind of like, okay, how do we figure out how to tackle this so that we can do it quickly? Cause I didn't want to be like, people that are holding on to their student loans for 30 years or, have a car payment for 7 years. So the first thing I did is, I created what I call a financial game plan where I put our assets and our debt on our budget. And I just said, hey, I had this one piece of paper that said, hey, here's all of our financial picture. And I noticed, hey, I've got this $17,000 car loan and my wife had a car that was worth $5,000. And so I was like, what if we sold your car and bought 2 cars for $5,000, and then I'll sell my car and we'll get rid of that 17 grand of debt, which gave us the $400 a month car payment that we were making to put towards other debt, right? So it was like this kind of aha of like, hey, if I could see everything on one piece of paper, I can kind of move around puzzle pieces and say, well, this one could go over here and this one could go, and then I'm like, now I got a new picture. So we were able to do that. And one funny story, we actually had to come up with an extra $1,000 because, as you probably know, cars depreciate so fast. We owed more on the car than it was worth. So we had to come up with $1,000 just to sell it. But that freed up that $400 in cash flow that we could then throw towards our credit cards and then eventually our student loans. So nothing that we did was kind of magical. It was kind of like, hey, we needed to figure out how to reduce our expenses, i.e. selling the car, getting rid of cable, that kind of stuff. Then I got a second job to increase the income. I was delivering pizzas at night. I was also selling stuff on eBay. So I would do like thrift and flip, right? So I'd go to like thrift stores and I would sell it on eBay, or I'd go to yard sales and sell it on eBay. So just finding ways that I could make extra money so that we could tackle our debt faster. And so it was just kind of that consistency over time and dedication, setting a deadline really helped us pay it off in 18 months and making, I think it was less than 70 grand, with the side hustles and all that stuff.
What would you say to somebody that's afraid to face the music? They know it's a problem, but don't want to put it down on paper. And maybe they don't even want to talk to their spouse about it. What would you say to somebody that's struggling with that? That's like, I don't know what to do. I know it's a problem, but I'm scared to do it.
Yeah, I say I've been there, right? And that's okay. It's okay to be scared. But I think that the reality is you got to kind of face that fear and say, hey, I actually will have clarity. Like if you know how much debt you have, you're like, oh, it's 52 grand. Now it's a mathematical equation, right? Let's just say, just for numbers sake, you're like, hey, I want to pay this off in 52 months. I just need to come up with $1,000 a month to pay it off, right? It means I could decrease my expenses 500, increase my income 500, and I'm there in 52 weeks or 52 months. 52 weeks would be amazing. But so really, it gives you clarity, right? So I know it can be scary, but really once you have that clarity, now you can start moving forward. Now you can go in a direction towards paying it off and getting on the other side of that, right?
And one of the principles that I keep seeing is like money is attracted to people who can handle it or take care of it, take good care of it, and I see that all the time. These financial principles even if you don't have a bunch of debt, but you have a bunch of assets, these same financial principles of understanding your income and your expenses, understanding how much you have as a net worth, understanding where you're investing the money that you're coming, choosing where to invest that money is almost the same of choosing how to pay off the debt. You're always trying to lower your expenses, increase your income. With what you have in the surplus, we call that creating a margin for income hackers, creating a personal margin. And then you're either using that money to pay down debts or you're using that money to increase your cash flows. And so these same principles, they don't end even after you're out of the debt.
If the goals drive the plan, then it's easier to say no. If you don't have goals, you're kind of like, well, Czech Republic sounds great. You're like, but those tickets are $1,000. And then how much is a hotel when I get over there? And then transportation and food and all that. You're like, gosh, we're going to spend at least $6,000, you know, like, so it's more like, hey, I mean, I think they understood we're a young couple. We don't have just $6,000 of disposable income to go to the Czech Republic. So it's like, hey, we'll hang out with you when you get back, you know? You know, but the smaller ones would be hard, right? Where it's like, hey, my friend wants to go to California for a weekend, you know, and then you just got to figure out, do you have the $1,000 from hotel and food and travel and all that to spend on it? And if not, then you just got to make that decision.
Let's talk a little bit about your investing. You got into some investing. You've got some Airbnb. You've done some other investing. Once I've got that money and I've got an emergency fund and I've increased my income, I've gotten down with my debts, and now I'm ready to say, okay, now I'm ready to start investing. How did you start that? And what's your thoughts on investing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is kind of, I used to be a financial planner. I'm not anymore. So just make that disclosure. And it was more about figuring out what's your time horizon. So how long do you want to invest that money? And then what's your risk tolerance, right? For me, I don't like a lot of risks. So I kind of look at like, what are the lower risk options out there, right? And so a lot of people use the S&P 500 as kind of a benchmark and say, hey, over a 50-year period of time, you could probably see somewhere between a 10 and 11% return. And so kind of say, okay, well, if I'm going to look for stuff that there's risk involved, it's got to get better than 11% return because I already have this to measure up against. And then, you know, there's also other things like I need money that's kind of parked, that's accessible. So for instance, there's this company called Worthy Bonds, and they will give money to small businesses and we'll get 5% in return. So it's kind of like a step up from a savings account that only pays 2.5%. So it's kind of like looking for, based on what I need to do with that money, how long I need it, you know, to kind of grow. So some of it's in a savings account, some of it's in these bonds, and then some of it is invested in, say, stocks and real estate. And so that's kind of the approach that we've taken.
And I love these options. I mean, we're real estate guys. We do real estate lending. We do rental properties. We do all that type of stuff. But that's not for everyone. Most landlords, and actually one of the ways we like to find properties is landlords that only own one property, and they find out they don't want to be a landlord anymore because they hate it. And, you know, we have systems and those things. But the important thing here, the Deacon's talking about, is there's lots of ways to do it. You can use the Fundrise. There's all types of ways to be involved in real estate or other things, debt or equity, so you can get those cash flows you're looking for that works best for you depending upon your circumstances. And that's part of our mission as income hackers, to basically spread the message of how to do these things and the options that are out there for you. And then you get to decide what's best for you. You're in the driver's seat. You own your financial future. So I love hearing about these new options. Let's jump into our wrap-up mode, Deacon. What's your why? What motivates you? What keeps you pushing through the hard things? What's your why?
Yeah. So for me, it's that I didn't really have that guide growing up, right? That said, hey, here's how to do things right. So I was the one out there buying stuff on credit cards. Like our honeymoon was on a credit card, buying the car I couldn't afford, you know, that kind of thing. And so I want to be that guide for people. I want to say, hey, you know what? There is a better way. And I want to help you make better choices so that you can achieve the goals that you want in life, right? So that you could have less stress, so that you can achieve the life that you want to live. And so for me, that's what motivates me. That's my why. It's really to help other people get from where they are to where they want to be.
Excellent. Favorite book?
The One Thing by Gary Keller. I love that book. And it's so simple because it's like, well, yeah, focus, one thing, but it's revolutionary for me.
Yeah, it's so hard to do. Favorite app?
Favorite app? Oh man, that's a good one. I mean, I'm going to have to say like Google Sheets because I'm a personal finance guy. But I mean, the reality is it's like I live in Sheets, right? Like I have a pro forma that casts out where I want to be. I've got income, you know, reports for where I am now. I've got all this stuff that Google Sheets, as simple as it is, that's my favorite one.
Yes. And taking time to put it together. If you had all day, money was no object, no obligations, you didn't have to stick to the budget, what would you do?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'd say travel. I think, we have a 2-year-old right now, so we're kind of reluctant on that. But yeah, I mean, if she was like completely compliant and was like, we could go travel, we would travel, go to Europe, just do fun stuff. I'm all about experiences, right? Just realizing like life is short, being able to do stuff as a family, unique stuff that brings joy. That's what we would be spending our time doing.
Excellent. Favorite quote? You can paraphrase or give us a saying. Favorite quote, something like that.
Yeah. So Michael Jordan had this quote, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like some want it to happen, some wish it would happen, some make it happen. Right. And it's like, I think we kind of go through those phases like, oh, I really want this to happen, but that's not really, like, oh, I wish it would happen to me. Like somebody would do it to me. Right. Versus like, no, I'm actually just going to make it happen. I'm going to go figure out how to do it for myself. And so that's always been a kind of motivator for me of like, no, I can make that choice. I can make it happen. I just got to go and do the steps to do it.
Excellent. Any final thoughts for our listeners?
No, I just think if people are ready to go, right, you just get started. I think that's the hardest part is like, I think you just have to take that first step, right? And I think once you do, then the momentum starts to build. If you're standing still, nothing's going to happen, right? So just take the courage and take that first step.
Excellent. Income hackers, you have been well fed today. Go check out Deacon. You can go to Well Kept Wallet or check out his book on Amazon on You Can Retire Early. Everything you need to know about achieving financial independence when you want to. Thanks so much for being with us. If you got value out of our discussion today, please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It's a big help to me. Also, please share with a friend. Nothing is more valuable than creating financial friends who are like-minded. You can do that by inviting them to listen to the Income Hacker podcast. Bye for now, and make it a very profitable day.